whispers, political debates, stories that resonate, open the gates from the heart of the South. With a gentle touch, Aaron's tales, they mean so much. He unravels mystery with an open mind, connecting souls one word at a time. Aaron tells a story with a southern charm, blessing hearts, doing no harm. You might laugh, you might cry, you might learn something, but please don't try. Good. Every word, every line, crafted to bless every time. In the world of Aaron's tales, every story, every sail, Aaron tells a story with a southern charm, blessing hearts, doing no harm. You might laugh, you might cry, you might learn something, but please don't try. Join Aaron on a journey where the tales unfold. He's got a way with words, a storyteller bold. Sometimes it's facts, sometimes it's fiction. Dramatic highs, anticlimactic conviction. His voice moves like wind through the autumn trees, crafting memories that put your heart at ease. Aaron tells a story with a southern charm, blessing hearts, doing no harm. You might laugh, you might cry, you might learn something, but please don't try. Spiritual whispers, political debates, stories that resonate, open the gates from the heart of the South. With a gentle touch, Aaron's tales, they mean so much. He unravels mystery with an open mind, connecting souls one word at a time. Aaron tells a story with a southern charm, blessing hearts, doing no harm. You might laugh, you might cry, you might learn something, but please don't try. Good. Every word, every line, crafted to bless every time.
All right. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you're having a nice night, October 20th. I wanted to take some time and read some historical documents that are actually very interesting. It's not boring to me, at least, and to have a few comments at the end, but I'm going to get right into it. And this is the address of the Danbury Baptist Association in the state of Connecticut, assembled October 7th, 1801. To Thomas Jefferson, Esquire, President of the United States of America. We're off to a great start, I think. Sir, among the many million in America and Europe who rejoice in your election to office, we embrace the first opportunity which we have enjoyed in our collective capacity since your inauguration to express our great satisfaction in your appointment to the Chief Magistracy in the United States. And though our mode of expression may be less courtly and pompous than what many others clothe their addresses with, we beg you, sir, to believe that none are more sincere. Our sentiments are uniformly on the side of religious liberty, that religion is at times and places a matter between God and individuals, that no man ought to suffer in name, person, or effects on account of his religious opinions, that the legitimate power of civil government extends no further than to punish the man who works ill to his neighbors. But, sir, our constitution of government is not specific. Our ancient charter, together with the law made coincidence therewith, were adopted as the basis of our government. And I'm going to explain some of this in just a minute. Hang out with me. At the time of our revolution, and such had been our laws and usages, and such still are, that religion is considered as the first object of legislation. Let me read that again. That religion is considered as the first object of legislation. Pausing from this letter for a minute, George Washington said, "You cannot have national morality apart from religious principle." Back into the letter from the Danbury Baptist to Thomas Jefferson. And therefore, what religious privileges we enjoy as a minor part of the state, we enjoy as favors granted and not as inalienable rights. Ooh. At that point, they did not feel like their religious practice were inalienable rights protected. And these favors we receive at the expense of such degrading acknowledgments as are inconsistent with the rights of freemen. In other words, let's fix this. This is a problem. It is not to be wondered at, therefore, if those who seek after power and gain under the pretense of government and religion should reproach their fellow man, should reproach their order magistrate as an enemy of religion, law, and good order, because he will not, dare not, assume the prerogatives of Jehovah and make laws to govern the kingdom of Christ. Sir, we are sensible that the President of the United States is not the national legislator. In other words, the President doesn't make the laws. And also sensible that the national government cannot destroy the laws of each state. In other words, this is something that many people misunderstand. We are not a federal government divided up into sections that we call states, with little chapters, little mini HOAs that we call states. We are, in fact, sovereign states that collectively form a union called the United States of America. In other words, that's why you can have gun laws in South Carolina where I live and practice freely, open carry, constitutional carry, my weapon. But if I were to go, to California, I would be arrested for that. We are individual states, and even though that should be a unified, reciprocated right across all of the states, because that is the Second Amendment, it is not at this time, but it speaks to the point that the states have their laws that are sovereign, individual states. All right, where was I? We're sensible that the President of the United States is not a national legislator, and also sensible that the national government cannot destroy the laws of each state. But our hopes are strong that the sentiments of our beloved President, which have had such a genial effect already, like the radiant beams of the sun, will shine and prevail through all these states and all the world, till hierarchy and tyranny be destroyed from the earth. Sir, when we reflect on your past services and we see a glow of philanthropy and goodwill shining forth in a course of more than 30 years, we have reason to believe that America's God has raised you up to fill the chair of state out of that goodwill which he bears to the millions which you preside over. May God strengthen you for your arduous task which Providence and the voice of the people have called you to sustain and support you. Enjoy the administration against all the predetermined opposition of those who wish to raise to wealth and importance on the poverty and subjection of the people. And may the Lord preserve you safe from every evil and bring you to at last his heavenly kingdom through Jesus Christ, our glorious mediator. Signed in behalf of the association, Nehemiah Dodge, Ephraim Robbins, and Stephen S. Nelson. Again, that was the Danbury Baptist Association in the state of Connecticut that assembled on October 7th, 1801, to the newly elected President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. And I'm going to pause for a minute and welcome you to Aaron Tells a Story. This is less of a story and more of me reading two letters, historical documents, and then providing a commentary. I invite you and welcome you into my professional studio, as you see behind me. That was a joke. But anyway, Thomas Jefferson replies to the Danbury Baptists on January 1st, 1802. New Year's Day. What a great way to start the year, getting a letter from the President of the United States. To Mr. Nehemiah Dodge, there I go again, Nehemiah Dodge, Ephraim Robbins, and Stephen S. Nelson, a committee of the Danbury Baptist Association in the state of Connecticut. This is a much shorter letter, but listen carefully. Gentlemen, the affectionate sentiments of esteem and approbation which you are so good as to express towards me on behalf of the Danbury Baptist Association give me the highest satisfaction. My duties dictate a faithful and zealous pursuit of the interests of my constituents, and in proportion they are persuaded of my fidelity to those duties, the discharge of them becomes more and more pleasing. Thomas Jefferson's constituents at this point would be the entire American people. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people which declared that their legislatures should, First Amendment, make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience, I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. I reciprocate your kind prayers for the protection and blessing of the common Father and Creator of man, and tender for yourselves your religious association assurances of my high respect and esteem. Thomas Jefferson, January 1st, 1802. Now let's talk for a minute about who the Danbury Baptists were. It was a collection of Baptist congregants, and they were concerned because they felt the government was overreaching and pressing in to their religious practice and religious freedoms. And Thomas Jefferson, recently elected President of the United States, a known deist, so many Christians would hold that against him. However, that doesn't really play into what we're talking about here. Thomas Jefferson is saying, look, you feel the government's pressing in. As president and as one of the framers of the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, here's what I believe. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God. Government's not in that equation. That he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship. That the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. In other words, the government can do things, but the government can't force you to believe things. While they have the power to make something occur, they don't have the power to make something be. They have the power to do. They don't have the power of being. But God has the power of being that leads to doing. That's kind of the idea here. And that we should have no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Thomas Jefferson was actually known as saying, if a man has 20 gods or a man has one God, it doesn't matter to me. He uses an expression like it's neither a pocket picker or something else. In other words, it doesn't impact me at all. In the case of freedom, we have freedom, we believe in freedom, and so long as that freedom is not encroaching on the liberties of others, we have that freedom. Also, the government cannot encroach on that freedom to be free and believe. So there is a wall of separation between church and state, Thomas Jefferson said. Now, that idea had been around previously, but the idea of a wall of separation was never never exposed within the religious context like that directly from the President of the United States. This morning in church, we sang, "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing." And I was joking with someone saying, "Hey, do you know what a bulwark is?" And they're like, "No, I don't know what a bulwark is." It's not a very common expression. But a bulwark was I'm trying to remember, but it's a seawall, a wall in the sea designed to break the waves so that the waves would crash against it, but also protect against ships. Imagine just a wall out in the water to protect whatever's behind the waves, to protect so that it doesn't crash in, but also other boats and things can't get past it. It is a wall. And so a mighty fortress is our God, our bulwark never failing. The wall of separation between church and state is often misunderstood, misinterpreted, misdiagnosed, and you want to talk about misinformation, and people are misinformed, that somehow that means that the church has the obligation to not impose on the government. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. You see, the First Amendment is a bulwark for religious freedom. The First Amendment is the protection from the government for religious freedom. The Second Amendment is the protection from the government infringing on your right to keep and bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the free people, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, something along those lines. And by the way, we are the militia. And what are weapons of war? Well, then when the Second Amendment was drafted, every weapon was a weapon of war. There was no distinction. And yes, you can have a cannon. That is covered by the Second Amendment. And no, you should not go on your back porch and fire off two shotguns or two shotgun blasts as warning shots, contrary to what Joe Biden said. But back to the bulwark. So Thomas Jefferson, although a deist, I don't pretend to understand every detail about his presidency or his life or every detail about his beliefs, but Thomas Jefferson got this one so right. He said, no, so long as it doesn't infringe on the liberties of others, the government doesn't have a right to step in and mess with your right to assemble, your right to religion, and they certainly can't say this religion is allowed and this one is not. And an interesting thing about that is if we try to you talk about 10 Commandments on courthouse steps. You can talk about 10 Commandments on the classroom walls. You can talk about prayer in schools. You can talk about all these misguided attempts to thwart Christianity and to try to usurp the authority of Christians in our country. And they claim, well, there's a wall of separation between church and state. It's important to remember that when Thomas Jefferson wrote this, as a congressman, maybe not as a congressman, excuse me, as vice president and president, the church, the official church that they were going to, that was a organized group of people as a church, was actually meeting. Oh no, this is not good. They were meeting in the Capitol. Oh no, this is not good. There's a wall of separation between church and state. Yes, that is protecting a bulwark, protecting the church from the crashing waves of the state. So if you ever wondered how that expression became so popular and came into context and then was twisted because it does not it does not suit the narrative of liberals. It does not suit the narrative of what was also discussed at my church this morning. Humanists. He called them humanists, secular humanists. It doesn't fit their narrative of the secular humanists. Thomas Jefferson and the Danbury Baptists, in his response to them saying, hey, help us, the government's encroaching on us, is there anything you can do? Thomas Jefferson said, yeah, they're not going to do that. That's not the way we intended this to be. And there's the proof written back on January 1st, 1802. Meanwhile, Thomas Jefferson himself was attending church in the Capitol building. So that bulwark was intended against the government and not against the people exercising their First Amendment. We exist as sovereign states, unified together as a republic, not a democracy, as a republic with a federal government. Have a great night. Be blessed. We'll see you later.
Tales unfold, he's got a way with words, storyteller bold. Sometimes it's facts, sometimes it's fiction.